I've probably managed about 350 people in my lifetime so far. I'm 38 years old now, and I think the first time that I ever managed somebody, I was 20, turning 21 that summer. I've managed about 350 people in different industries, across different industries. And when I'm really being honest with myself, I look at it and go, all 350 of the people I've managed suffer from very similar problems. And what I always have to come back to is that's not possible. Right? The ratios, that just doesn't add up. So at the end of the day, there's only one constant in every one of those relationships, and that constant is me and how I manage people. So I think it's important for anybody who's managing other people to look at themselves first. Like, what am I doing that's making it difficult for people to understand what my expectations are, and making it either A, difficult to meet my expectations, or B, not necessary to meet my expectations, or C, both. So for me, I've recognized that as a people manager, I'm somebody who fails to set direct expectations, allows for folks to struggle meeting my expectations and not face any consequences of any sort. And that makes it so that at all times, I have folks who are either not caring or are struggling. And a lot of times, almost always, I have people who are both. So I go back to an instance in my kitchen probably about 7 or 8 years ago now, where I had an employee who worked for me who was a really, really good guy. And I really liked him, and he was the kind of person who would run through walls for me. So I would allow for all of his shortcomings, actually, like many, many things that were problematic in my business, some of them intentional and willful, like leaving dirty dishes because he didn't feel like finishing them, and some of them just accidental because he didn't have the skill set, like poorly cutting stuff in prep. So as a young people manager, I handled it how I see a lot of young managers handle problems like that. I got emotional and angry, and I would be almost to the point, and I'm letting myself off the hook easily there, definitely to the point of being verbally abusive at times, under the guise that I was in the right and I needed to address these problems. It's sort of like when you see Gordon Ramsay yelling and screaming in a kitchen. What you're not necessarily understanding and seeing is that there were failures in management that allowed it to get to that moment in time. By the time a people manager is screaming and yelling at their people, there was poor training, there was a failure to address that poor training, and there was a failure to move on from staff that couldn't meet your expectations. So this employee, who was much older than I am, looked at me and very wisely said to me, "You know, Avi, I really don't want to come to work every day to be yelled at. If I'm not good enough, I think you have to make the decision to let me go. But I don't think letting me stay here and just being mean to me is the answer." And I chewed on that. And then 24 hours later, I fired them. And when I tell that story, a lot of times people look at it and go, wow, like that's a punchline. But the reality is I see that person out in the community. They have a great job that's a good fit for them. I have people that work for me who meet my expectations. Their life is better, my life is better. And in the end, I had us in a cycle where I thought that I was being a good people manager by allowing it and trying to work with them. But the reality is that I had seen pretty early on that they were never going to be a fit for my company. And I was very sort of pig-headedly trying to push forward and handle it very, very poorly. So ultimately, I'm working on me becoming a more direct people manager, giving people expectations and making it clear that they needed to be met, and then doing the really hard part, which is holding people accountable to that. You know, there's X number of chances, and you have to be clear with that ahead of time. And after that, I'm sorry, but you're just not a fit here. And that hurts for a moment, but ultimately speaking, everybody's good at something. They will find a job, and I can find somebody who will fit my team. And instead of trying to put round pegs into square holes, it's really better to identify pretty quickly on who fits you and who you fit, and then try to work to sort of sand off the edges and make them a perfect fit.